Everyone, it's Cheryl with Silver Sage Studio. I decided to see if I could explore 5 different ways to adhere both deco foil and metal leafing. Here is Pentart Metal Flakes. They come in variegated colors, and I just really love this set. And then here I'm using silver deco foil, and I wanted to see if I could come up with 5 techniques to adhere these. Not everything was super successful, so let's dig in and see what is happening. I have here some dark blue cardstock from Lawn Fawn that I'm going to use because it's a nice contrast to both the gold and the silver. And I'm going to tape this cardstock down with a little bit of washi tape so that I can get it lined up with my grid paper. Doesn't really matter for testing this. However, it is kind of nice if you're doing it on an actual project so that you can line up that score tape with the lines on the mat and therefore get a nice clean line. Now, full disclosure here, this approach is not new to me, but I wanted to see if both products, both the flakes and the foil, would work similarly side by side. So what's nice about this score tape is that it comes in different widths, and it's a very strong adhesive, and I found that it adheres very consistently onto the cardstock. And as you can see there, that silver just really nicely adhered to that score tape. And the metal flakes also work very nicely with the score tape as well. I just take a stiff brush and brush it over the foil flakes, and there you go. Bit of a spoiler alert on here with those flowers, but I wanted you to see what the score tape looked like with both the deco foil in silver and those gold metal flakes. I think it just looks really lovely, and this was a win. For my second attempt, I use Ranger Sticky Heat Embossing Powder. This powder, once it's heated, is sticky, so I wanted to see if it would work with both the flakes and the foil. Well, actually, I knew it would work with the flakes, so it was the foil I was really testing here. If you see here, this embossing powder is very grainy. You're going to see an image here in just a second. There you go. And because of that, I didn't think it would work very well with such a finely detailed stamp image. But it turns out it worked okay. So when you heat this powder, it's important to allow your heat tool to get good and hot before putting it to the paper. If you overheat the powder, it will lose its stickiness, and you are less likely to do that if you are not having to go over areas more than once because the air wasn't hot enough. So that's what I was doing right there. I did this whole process here twice. The first time I didn't get the foil to adhere. That's the image you saw in the last picture with the score tape. But it turns out it's because I was using my finger to rub down the foil, and you really need to use a bone folder to burnish the foil so it adheres well. So I'm starting here with the metal flakes, and it just is super easy to get that foil to stick. And unfortunately, some of those metal flakes escaped from me and got onto the side I was going to use the foil, so I just decided to run with it and finished adhering foil over that whole image. And I really loved the way that this turned out. I just thought it was beautiful, and it really surprised me. I did not think it would work, like I said, with such a fine image. So this time I'm actually using a bone folder with the silver foil, as I mentioned earlier, and it worked pretty well. It didn't work quite as nicely as the metal flakes, but it did work, and I wouldn't dismiss using it on a product. So overall, I think the embossing powder with the finely detailed stamp was a win. Okay, so after using that finely detailed stamp, which by the way is from Spellbinders, I decided to use a solid stamp. This butterfly stamp is from Paper Tray Ink. I'll link to what I can in the video notes. And I really need to hit that image multiple times to get that Versamark down consistently. And I'm going to be skipping through some parts here just to save us all some time, but you'll see that the graininess of this embossing embossing powder makes it maybe not work as well as I would have liked to. So normally if I have a grainy embossing image, I'll just continue to heat it until it smooths out. But as I mentioned earlier, if you overheat this embossing powder, you're going to have some trouble with the stickiness. And I think part of what I didn't like about this is I really had to burnish that silver foil down, and you can see here that I ended up getting kind of a blotchy image, and I just didn't really like it. This gold was okay. I have a little spot that's missing foil. I could have fixed that if I wanted to. I think that I would use this approach if I were going for maybe a somewhat distressed look and not a clean and simple look. So I'd say that this approach was moderately successful. For the fourth technique, I am going to use Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. This glue is tacky when dry, which isn't always a great thing, but it works well for something like this. I'm going to use a stencil here. I used this approach in an earlier video with the metal flakes and really loved it, so I wanted to try it again and to use it with the foil and see if that would work. So I put some glue onto some wax paper and used an ordinary makeup sponge. I pick up some of that glue, tap off the extra because you don't want so much on the sponge that the glue seeps under the stencil. And it's really that simple. So I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. It doesn't get tacky until it's dry. It's obviously sticky because it's glue, but it's not tacky enough when it's dry. My first attempt, I see as I'm watching this that I didn't fully cover the stamp with the glue, but my second stamp here is more successful. So you'll see when I put the foil on it, that first image isn't complete. That back tire just got cut off. Poor guy. And boy, let me tell you, this glue makes the stamp stick to the paper. I mean, it's glue, right? So I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I was. And now I'm burnishing that silver down, and I was really not expecting this to work that well, to be honest with you, and I thought it came out great. And doing it over both the stencil image and the stamp image, I didn't think the stamp image was quite as great, but I think if I really wanted a silver bike, that would be the way to go, honestly. And the foils I thought worked really well. They pick up the detail of that stamp really nicely. And I love the way these metal flakes work with the stenciled design. I think this is really great for mixed media projects. So overall, I think this was a pretty good success. What do you think? Was it a success? Let me know in the For my last technique, I wanted to try using double-sided adhesive sheets with die cuts. And my idea here was to die cut the adhesive sheets and then place them down on the cardstock. What happened though is I found it was really hard to get the backing paper off of that adhesive when it's not attached to cardstock. It just really was too flimsy, really, to get that backing off. And so I ended up not getting clean images because in the process of trying to get that backing paper off, I really kind of smudged up the adhesive. So especially here with the silver foil, you'll see that I did not get a nice clean image. It worked out better the second time here when I did it with the metal leafing, but still it wasn't as great as I had hoped, and I wasn't getting the nice embossing that was on the leaves, and instead I was just getting the shape of the leaves, and like I said, even then it wasn't super great. I wasn't thrilled with this approach. I just found it too challenging. So another approach I decided to try was to adhere the sticky sheets onto the cardstock, add the leafing and the foil, and then die cut that. So basically what I'm going to do here in a second is make my own metallic paper and then die cut that. I really liked the way that this approach worked. You get the details of the embossing on the leaf lines. They just ended up being really cute, and I can really see myself using these on projects. Now, as I'm doing this, I wanted to explain why I was trying these techniques. I really wanted to buy Heidi Swapp's toner ink because I have foils and I don't use them enough. And I thought if I had that toner ink and could use that toner ink with my stamps, I could get more use out of the foils that I have. But I'm really trying to hold off on buying things. So what I'm finding is that when I push myself to use my products with other products that I have on hand, I get creative and I can really get some good ideas that way and find new uses of using products that I already have. So you'll see here that these leaves, I just really liked the way that they came out. I thought they were super cute. And I used some of these techniques on another project. I'm going to link to that video right here. Thank you so much for watching, and check out that video if you want to learn more and see these techniques in action.